The following podcast may contain adult language and an abundance of salt. So get ready, nerds, because we're talking Battlestar Galactica. Welcome, everybody, and thank you for joining us on this episode of the Salty Nerd Podcast. We're talking Battlestar Galactica The Mini-Series, the pilot episode, two-parter that leads into the TV show. This, of course, is in conjunction. Thank you, Jude.
You're welcome.
This is in conjunction with our monthly Patreon subscriber content. We're going to be talking about the Battlestar Galactica TV show, the first 4 episodes. So we're going to talk about the mini-series, get into it, kind of settle in on this world, and then we're going to jump into the TV show itself. I'm joined, as always, by my fantastic panel of nerds. Matt Vader is here.
Hey, buddy.
Hey, man.
How are you?
Did you flip the switch?
I'm working on it. The coffee's kicking in. Trying to figure out if I'm a Cylon or not. You know, so.
Well, I mean, do you see what they have over there?
Yeah, they got some hotties.
They got some hotties.
Yeah, man. Cylons got
the blonde,
and they're all DTF'd,
and the Asian.
Oh, yeah.
It's like
very. I don't know. I'll figure it out later. Moving on.
Jude.
Hello.
Hello. Are you team Cylon or team human?
Oh, that's a great question. The God created the Cylons to make up for the mistake of humans, so I guess we'll find out.
Okay. And producer of the show, Matthew Kadish. Welcome, sir.
Yeah, so I'm actually looking forward to talking about this series because in addition to it being a remake of a classic science fiction show, it is the vision of a couple of Star Trek writers and what they wanted to do with the Deep Space Nine. And so like this is actually kind of like their opportunity to kind of get really dark with science fiction. Mm-hmm. And it was kind of the first of its kind, and it set like a new tone for science fiction going forward, which wasn't necessarily a good thing, I think. But overall, like this is an excellent series, and I can't wait to talk about it.
Yeah,
full disclosure, we don't really have a lot of salt.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. I don't think we're going to make fun of it like we were making fun of Buck Rogers.
Okay, but there are things that are pretty hilarious about this.
Yeah.
There is?
Gaius Baltar.
Gaius Baltar.
Dr. Gaius Baltar.
The horny guy.
He annoys the shit out of me.
Let's get into
His
it.
constant life crisis.
Yeah, but you liked him in Eureka.
He was fun. He was good.
And
in
he's
Eureka.
also Picard's dad.
Yeah, he's Picard's father.
Picard's dad. Is that the new show?
In the new show.
In the new show? Wasn't Picard's dad bald, though?
I guess not.
Was that season 2?
That's only if you care about canon.
That show doesn't exist.
I don't remember Picard's dad
Nonsense.
ever being bald, but
Yeah.
in fact, I don't remember ever seeing Picard's dad up until.
I don't want to talk about Star Trek today.
Okay, sorry.
Everyone in Star Trek related to the Picard bloodline is bald, apparently.
Yeah.
Even Jean-Luc was bald when he was a teenager.
That's right. Remember, what's his name? Chevron or whatever the fuck his
Shenzon.
name is? Shenzon from
Chevron.
Nemesis.
Hello, Stargate.
Oh, all right. Well, we're going to talk about this show. So if you haven't seen it, I mean, it's been like, what, 18 years?
21 years.
So, don't be a pleb like me. Get on it. Go watch the show. We're going to dive into the part 1 and part 2 of the miniseries right after this break. Stay tuned.
So say we all.
Welcome back, everybody. Hey, if you guys would like to support what we do here on the podcast and play an awesome mobile game, head over to saltynerd.com/DC and download a game called Dragon Champions. And when you do download it, don't forget to get credit for that. Go to the promo code area and type in Salty. It gives you a leg up on the competition, gives you an extra character, some extra gold, a couple coins here and there, and it'll help you along your way. And also, to get the full experience of the Salty Nerd Podcast, Dragon Champions Guild, head over to our Discord app and check out the chat room for Dragon Champions. Those guys are active as hell over there. They're scheduling raids. They're doing all kinds of stuff. They're sharing information, secret codes that you get extra stuff for every couple of weeks. It's weird. I don't know what's going on over there. Vader, can you fill me in, please?
I think Vader's playing it right now.
He might be.
Are you in a raid? Are you raiding?
No, I'm not raiding right now. Codes, yeah. You get codes. And you get extra shit. It's
cool.
It's cool.
Yeah, the thing that you said? Yep.
That stuff.
Excellent. All right, cool. Yeah, it's a lot of fun, guys. And the developers of the game help support us at the podcast. We want to return the favor. So make sure you type in that promo code SALTY and get yourself into our guild. And we'll have a lot of fun with you. All right. Moving on. Mm-hmm. Battlestar Galactica.
Yes.
Take it away, Jude.
All right. Battlestar Galactica, the TV miniseries, rated TV 14 and came out in 2003. In the beginning, man created machine slaves. the machines decided, fuck those humans, and a great war ensued. Now it's been 40 years since anyone has seen a Cylon. A sexy blonde lady surprises the peace officer delegated to sit and wait for contact from the Cylons. She makes full contact, distracting him just long enough from realizing the Cylons are waging war, blowing up the space station and preventing him from sending a warning.
That sounds super hot.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was the world's first introduction to Tricia Helfer, and the world's never been the same.
God dang. I'd be a robot slave too.
So her character is named Six, I believe.
Yeah, because she's the sixth model.
6 out of 12.
Not to
right?
spoil it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, she says that.
I'm a 6.
I don't know if it's in part 1 or part 2, but she's like, there's 12 models.
It's in part 2 when she is confessing to Gaius.
Okay.
Well, someone in part 2 tells Adama that there are 12 models, and we don't know who it is yet who's given him that tidbit of information.
You guys are jumping all over the place.
Yes. Part 1 and 2. So I've never seen this show before.
Yeah.
When it came out, what'd you say, 2003? I was too young to give a shit.
Yeah.
Like it was too slow, too political for me to really get into it. I was looking for more lightsabers and laser blasts and stuff. And so it's been off my radar. And I've heard everybody talks about Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah.
I mean, it's super famous. It's one of the coolest sci-fi shows out there. I just had never gotten into it. And so this is my first watch. And I immediately was like, yes, this is awesome.
I'm so glad. I was really excited for you to watch this.
Yeah, I told my wife, I was like, because she's a big fan of Battlestar Galactica too. And I was like, yeah, we got to watch it for the show. Do you want to watch it with me? She's like, yeah, I'll watch it with you, but I don't think you're going to like it. I'm like, what? Why? She's like, it's kind of slow. And I'm like, oh, all right, well, I'll give it a shot and see what.
But it's not.
And I was like, this freaking show is
I
awesome.
know.
Yeah.
It's so cool. I love immediately when they're on Battlestar Galactica, they're doing their like little walk around, stuff like that. It's like this old relic from a bygone era.
They're about to retire this
Yeah,
ship.
yeah.
They're about to retire the commander.
Yeah.
And then shit goes down.
Yeah, and it's the only one that can fight the Cylons
he-
because it's from the war.
Yeah.
And it's like set up to not be able to be hacked
And
by them.
he's like the only commander. So like
Yeah.
he was like 5 hours away from just sitting on a golf course the rest of his life.
Yeah.
And now he's in a war.
But the first thing I noticed was it does what every good sci-fi show does from original Star Trek forward, is when you're in that command center and you're going up against an enemy and all you have is freaking radar screens. It's got like that Hunt for Red October vibe. I was freaking into it.
Yeah, and I loved how they set up from the very beginning. Like the one guy's giving a tour, and he's like, "You're gonna find a lot of antiquated stuff, like cords and things."
Yeah,
I
yeah.
know nobody uses that anymore, right? What a relic! And it's really cool because that way it gives it that. Yes, it looks dated, but it's supposed to.
Yeah.
Because this was supposed to end up in a museum, and now all of a sudden we have to use it for our survival.
Yeah.
It was already halfway converted into a museum. That's why they had all the old
Yeah, they-
relic ships in there.
Which thank God they did.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
The thing that's cool about this show, just right from the get-go, and you guys kind of touched on it already, everybody gets a setup. Every character gets its own setup, story, and payoff in this series as it goes along, and I really like that. We get introduced to the major characters here, but as we go along, there's all kinds of smaller bit players that come into this show as well. But we get Adama and Ty
And Starbuck.
and Apollo and
Yeah.
all these.
I'm
guys,
not
and Boomer,
super familiar with everybody's names yet.
Tyrrell is the
So-
deck chief.
Yeah.
I'm going to be using mostly their call signs when I do the synopsis because
Okay.
that's how they address each other.
Okay. So Starbuck is her call sign, but her real name is what?
Katee Sackhoff.
Kara Thrace.
It's Kara Thrace.
Yeah, okay. I was gonna say her character name, not her real name. We know
Yeah.
everybody knows Katee Sackhoff.
Adama usually calls her Kara, but they have a personal relationship.
Okay.
But everyone else calls her Starbuck.
So what's interesting about this miniseries is that this was like one of the first forays of the Sci-Fi Channel into original programming. Before Battlestar Galactica, it was just kind of like the sci-fi movie of the week where they like bought like a really bad B movie and claimed that, oh, we're going to slap our logo on it. So this was like a big deal when it first came out. And this was basically Ronald D. Moore's version of Battlestar Galactica, where he was a big writer for Star Trek. He started with Next Generation, moved on to Deep Space Nine. And Deep Space Nine was really kind of like his baby, along with Ira Conan Bear, I think his name is. Ronald Moore kept pushing to take Star Trek in a darker direction. because he wanted more interpersonal conflicts. He wanted more intrigue. He wanted like all this like really kind of like a grimdark sci-fi stuff in there. And with this show, he was like the guy in charge. And so he was able to do whatever he wanted. And he just decided to do like this really bleak version of space adventure. And I remember when this came out on the Sci-Fi Channel, it was a 2-night event. So like you watch the first part the first night and the second part the second night. I remember being really hyped for this because like, even though I wasn't like a big like fan of the original Battlestar Galactica, I could appreciate like the impact it had because it came right after Star Wars, and it was like, you know, basically the same special effects guys who did Star Wars did Battlestar Galactica. And when this came out, I watched it and I remember being so bored with this miniseries. And I was like, this isn't going to make a very good show. And then like I watched the very first episode of the series, which is called 33. And that was just nonstop.
They
and
sucker punch you right from the beginning.
And from that point on, I was into the series. But off of the first viewing of the miniseries, I was like, this is very slow. It's not very good. But it's one of those shows where like when you watch it, having seen the rest of the series that comes after it, you can appreciate what's happening in the miniseries more. And so like it plays better after having seen like the full series than it did when I was just going into it fresh.
That's weird.
Yeah.
I went into it fresh this week and I was freaking like sold.
Yeah, I don't see where it's slow or boring at all ever.
No, it's cool because like we get to see this this setup for this world. And my impression of this when I was first watching it was like they keep talking about this war that happened 50 years ago against the Cylons, and then the Cylons like left and they're gone and we haven't seen them since, and it's kind of like this, they just went away and everybody's like, everything's fine now.
Yeah, so basically there's this station and they're each supposed to send a delegate once a year to be like, hey, we still cool? And the Cylons have never sent anyone. And for 40 years, the humans have had their delegate waiting there for contact, and the first contact they get is an attack.
Yeah. They
40
blow
years
the
later.
fuck out of it.
Yeah.
Well, the Cylons don't give a shit about
No.
the humans.
Well, the humans are a mistake, according to the Cylons. The
Yeah.
Cylons are the master race, and the humans are the mistake.
Also, the Cylons have evolved over the years. So like they're not just the boxy robot Cylons, which was kind of like the default of the original Battlestar Galactica. They show up and they have kind of streamlined the robotic
They're
versions.
working on themselves.
Yeah, but they've also kind of like gotten philosophical and religious, and you know, like kind of have found like their place in the universe, which they believe is like the superior life force, and they want to wipe out all the remnants of their past.
Yeah. I thought going into this, because I had never seen the original Battlestar either, I thought going into this that they were referencing the original show when they were talking about the Cylon War like 50 years ago. Oh, 50 years ago. I'm like, that's like about how long the show's been gone, and now this show's coming back in 2003, and they're talking about the original show having that battle. But apparently you guys said it's the exact same storyline.
Pretty close. Yeah,
That's
I mean,
crazy.
they I think they changed a few things, but if you go back and you watch the first 2 episodes or the pilot or whatever, it's basically the same story.
That's weird.
Yeah.
So do we
the
have
Cylons attack and they destroy everything, so they have to get the remnants of this fleet together and go hunt for Earth.
That's crazy.
You know, and it's yeah.
I thought for sure the old show was like the original fight
You know what?
with the original boxy Cylons. and
I've
stuff.
never seen it. And when we were talking about what we're going to do last month, I wanted to do this, but I was like, you know what? I've never seen the original before. Maybe I should revisit or like visit it and then make my decision. And I went to queue it up, and when I went to queue up the original one, this one started playing, and I was like, well, fuck, it was meant to be. And I couldn't find it. I couldn't find the original.
Yeah, so this is a remake as opposed to a continuation. So like if they had used the original series as canon, it would have been a continuation, but this is actually like a reboot. And so in this universe, the Cylon War happened, and then this show happened, and so like there was some confusion around that when it came out, because people were like, is this like a continuation? But no, it's a straight up reboot. So nothing in the original series actually carries over into this.
Okay.
I like to call it a reimagination.
Yeah.
Because there was some controversy when this first came out.
Yeah.
There was gender swapping. There was a lot of, they changed a lot of characters.
Yeah,
on this
the
thing.
big thing was Starbucks.
Starbuck was huge. Starbuck is like the most popular character.
Yeah, can we talk
from the original series? Dirk Benedict played Starbuck.
Okay.
You know, cigar chomping, womanizer. He's kind of Han Solo.
Yeah.
You know, best friend of Apollo. And you know, even me when this came out, I was like, they're changing Starbuck into a woman. How dare they? You know, I mean, I'm not into this gender swapping bullshit, but you know, it depends on why. You know, Ron Moore took this story, he twisted and turned it, and everybody has a reason in this show for the changes that he made. He made changes to be able to tell the story he wanted to tell, and it's not necessarily the same story that we got from the original series. And for that reason, I can appreciate this. And you know, changing roles to virtue signal is way different than what they did on this show. They changed the characters and roles in this show to be able to tell a more cohesive story, and I appreciate it. Yeah. And you know, Katee Sackhoff took this role, and she just owned it. You know, and she took a guy like me who was dead set against this gender swap at the beginning, and I was sold 10 minutes into this thing. I was like, oh, okay, I'm in.
She really embodies the character.
She really took over this character, and I was very happy about how she took it.
I'd like to chime in on that because I remember around the time that the miniseries was originally starting to air, leading up to it, the internet was just like freaking filled with haters of the Starbuck change. And Katee Sackhoff, like she was coming off of a show based off of Mr. Holland's Opus. That was kind of like her big claim to fame. Nobody really knew who she was. And she was cast in this role, and she was the target of some really bad, like internet toxic, like hating going on. And she just kind of like weathered the storm, and she went out there and she gave this performance. And within like 2-3 episodes, like every single person who was like screaming at the top of their lungs that like Starbuck needed to be a man was like, no, this is now my Starbuck. And throughout the course of the series, like she became like one of the most popular characters in the show. And so like, it was just kind of funny. It was almost like a Heath Ledger's Joker moment where everyone was like against it at first. And then once they saw the interpretation of the character, they were like, hey, we're on board. And I think that's the mark of like most shows nowadays will gender or race swap or whatever, just to be more inclusive.
Right.
And they don't really do anything with the characters other than say like, hey, this guy is black or this woman's gay or like whatever. And with this show, it was like, they basically wrote her as a man to begin with, but it was so layered, and her character had so much important stuff to do. And she was such a counterbalance to Apollo, who's like the straight guy, straight in terms of like by the book, you know, like I'm the good guy type thing. And so like
the Kadish.
Yeah. I wasn't going to say it.
Am I Starbuck? Oh man.
but you know, that like they did so much with her character that most people who make entertainment nowadays, like they don't like, they're just like this character's gay, and like that's like their whole character, and they don't really expand them beyond that, you know. So like I guess it's kind of the blueprint to say like this is how, you know, if you're gonna gender swap someone, this is how you do it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's cool. I don't know.
She plays. We're doing the rewatch of this, you know, and I'm watching it with Alex. We're kind of chatting back and forth, and this character is so pivotal as this series goes along, and I know what happens, and I'm just like, and I was typing stuff, and I deleted stuff. I was like, fuck, I can't say that, and it's like it was really hard. It's going to be really hard for me to like not spoil stuff as we go over this over the next month. Basically, this thing is it's an introduction of all the characters. It's a series pilot that turned into a movie.
So the creepy Cylon chick, what's her name again?
Six.
That's literally her name. She doesn't actually have a name.
Number 6.
Okay, 6. That'll be easy to remember. That scene where she goes and she talks to the lady with the baby, and she's like, "Oh, it's so fragile, almost like it can't live on its own," and blah blah blah. And I was like, "Bitch, put the baby down."
And this mother's like, "Yeah, hold my baby.
Yeah.
I'll be there in a minute."
Yeah, no.
No, you're funny. No, you hang up. And then like walks like 7 feet away.
Yeah, no.
And then comes back and is like, "Oh, my baby's
dead."
Well, fucking obviously.
Don't give your baby to strangers.
Creepy.
Yeah.
The worst part was the sound effect when she broke the baby's neck.
She's just putting the baby out of its misery.
and then
saving it some heartache
She
and
didn't
pain.
even do it on purpose. Did you see her face when you hear that snap? She's like, oh,
No,
oh shit! I didn't even know that would happen.
She
That's
totally
crazy.
did it on purpose.
You think, yeah,
She totally did it on purpose.
I think so.
She was having some
No, I
empathy
think she
for
was.
the baby.
She was like, like when you're a kid and you're poking ants or whatever. She was like, oh, let me poke this with a stick and see what happens. Oh, it's dead. Oh,
No.
weird.
No,
That is not what
I got the impression that she did that on purpose.
Rewatch it.
She might have been
Rewatch it.
surprised at how easy it was.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah,
But I think she totally was like,
Yeah, you can hear the baby cooing up until that point, and it's just like silence.
oh, can't talk about it anymore. Moving on.
But 6, she's such an important character throughout the entire season, and we get to see her role in basically the destruction of the colonies and how she manipulated Gaius Baltar, and she's kind of our window into Gaius, who's arguably
Fucking
the worst
bananas.
character ever made.
Oh, he's terrible.
like episode or like part 1 of the miniseries, I'm already done with this dude.
Yeah.
Like his constant life crisis that he's going through and his freaking wet dreams he's having every 30 seconds. I'm just like, dude, I can't watch this anymore.
You better get used to that.
Yeah, the thing about
Because he's going to be around. That Ghost 6 is going to be around.
the thing about Gaius is always he's the consummate survivor, and he's always figuring out how to look out for himself first. He's this very famous doctor who's famous for like breakthroughs for humanity.
He's almost like Elon Musk.
And people love him. Like Hilo gave up his seat on his own ship.
Yeah, I
And
was
he
wondering about that.
He
I'm
was like,
so
this guy's important, and he's going to be really important for the survival of humanity. Not realizing he's the reason this whole war happened, because he's a fucking idiot who just wanted to fuck this hot girl, and he gave her access to the defense mainframe.
ridiculous.
And did you catch that she was the one who rewrote all of his algorithms?
Yeah.
Oh, so she's the one who's making him super smart? So he's not even that
He's
smart.
not even that smart.
Oh,
It's
God, I
all
hate him even
6.
more now.
It's all 6. And he's, even while she's like, well, I mean, how about congratulations to me? Like, I rewrote all your shit. And he's like, you got something out of it. This dick.
You're a pretty lady.
Yeah.
I have a question about his wet dreams with her all the time, constantly, nonstop, midlife crisis stuff. Did she implant some kind of a thing in his head to make her show up all the time, or is this dude just fucking crazy?
It's never clear, but I do think that is what she did.
Yeah, so like they never come out and say that he was implanted with something. It's kind of implied that explosion when he was like, when she shielded him with her body, that something got transferred in that process. But it's either like he's crazy and these are manifestations of his guilt over what happened, or the Cylons implanted something in him. They play around with this idea a lot of like what exactly is up with Gaius Baltar.
Okay.
But he's basically the primary villain of the series. Like it's not the Cylons, it's Gaius Baltar.
Because he's just throwing a monkey wrench in everybody's plans. Freaking hate that guy.
You should.
Well, he's constantly working against humanity within the colony fleet of survivors, because like he's basically just worried about covering his own ass and making sure he survives, and he doesn't care like who he has to like screw over or kill in order to do that.
He's a narcissist psychopath, basically.
So this show came out 2003. And we just rounded the 22 year anniversary of 9/11 or something like that. So every year I go down this little rabbit hole from 9/11 and I watch a couple documentaries just to remember that day, because I watched it live. And I don't know if this is because the show was filmed during around that time, but they made that attack from the Cylons on this planet feel very much similar to how it felt on 9/11. And I don't know if they did it on purpose or not, but having the delayed reaction from like, yes, the attack happened, we get to see it from ground zero, and then they get this delayed radio communication and having them like, what the fuck just happened? No, that can't happen.
Yeah, like
There's no way.
The first scene is the explosion,
Yeah.
and we still get like 10 more minutes of them being
Of them
like, this
just like,
ceremony.
everything's fine.
Yeah.
And then they get the radio communication, and everybody's like, what is going on
And they
right
think
now?
it's a joke.
And they think it's a joke.
Yeah.
They think it's a prank. They don't know if it's serious or not. Like having just being fresh off of watching a couple documentaries, it's literally the same thing that happened on that day. And I just got like this like real, I don't know, like gut feeling when I watched this show that it had so many similarities to that. So I'm just, I don't know. Do you guys get the same feeling?
I never
or?
put that together.
Okay.
Well, one of the interesting creative choices that Ronald D. Moore made when they were making this series is that they went with a cinema verite style, which is basically they made it feel like a documentary. So it's all handheld cameras. It's like, you know, very blatant zoom ins and zoom outs. So like you're aware of the camera in the show. And it's meant to feel like, you know, the cameraman's like right there, like showing you stuff as it happens, even in space, like the whole like shaky cam in space where like you're zooming in and you're zooming out and you're seeing like what's happening almost from like the point of view of someone who's operating a camera, was a very deliberate decision. And this is something that hadn't been done in sci-fi before. In fact, George Lucas, when he was doing the prequels,
Attack of the Clones.
He
did use that, yeah.
Battlestar is what inspired him to do that.
No shit.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah. That style that Battlestar basically pioneered, of showing, like, first of all, the space flight stuff in this show is dead on accurate, like the way that, you know, you maneuver in space and stuff. But the way that it's shot was also something that wasn't done at the time. And like, you know, most of the time special effects shots were very clear and you know, like steady and they showed you what happened in a very beautiful way. And this one, it was like down and dirty and handheld and like zooming in and zooming out. And they almost took like a Tony Scott from Top Gun approach to it, where, you know, you'd have cameras mounted on like the Raptors and like you'd see them firing and stuff like that. And it was a totally different way of portraying space battles that hadn't been done before. And it gave the show a really kind of like unique and almost like down and dirty feel to it. And I think that's also part of what you're picking up on, is the fact that like it feels like a documentary.
Yeah.
And that was very deliberate.
Yeah. I think that's another reason why I got sold on this show so quickly, having never seen it before and watching it. I'm like, this is freaking really cool. I love this show. And it's because it reminds me of all those real world scenario stuff. It never once came off like, oh, this is a goofy sci-fi show. Like, no, this shit is happening. And I was kind of sold into the universe immediately. So it was really cool.
So it's a dark and gritty and semi-realistic look at maybe what space combat might sort of look like. It's not completely realistic. Let's not fool ourselves here. Okay, it's definitely styled for
stylized. It's stylized, but they go through the
missiles
effort
with, you know, comm trails and shit following behind them and everything. You know, that's not going to happen.
But they do take extra steps, like in their combat and stuff, where they'll have the camera go from inside the ship to outside the ship, and the sound will be muted. It won't be completely gone, but it'll be muted to the point where like it's signifying that space is a vacuum and there's not a lot of sound.
For the time that this came out, this was next level.
Yeah.
Television effects, and it's what sold me. I think it was the final nail on this show for me. It was like, holy shit, this is really good. And, you know, and just watching it now, 21 years later, that still holds up pretty well. You know what I mean? I mean, there's some definite there's some definite ratio, kind of like stretchy screen kind of maybe stuff a little bit, you know, but no, man, it still looks good. So, and it's still
yeah, and I think the 9/11 comparison, a better comparison is probably like Pearl Harbor. Yeah. Where like you see all these advanced battle stars and starfighters go up against the Cylons, and they just like shut down. They're just like floating useless in space, and the Cylons just like wipe them out. And
well, the Cylons developed a technology to be able to shut down. It was basically the EMP bomb the entire colonies.
Yeah, it was like,
and you know, because there's a scene in here where they say they've destroyed 30 battle stars at the initial salvo, and that's because they had the little Cylon ship go bzz, bzz, with its eyeball, and they set out that EMP pulse, and everything just floating in space. And they just go and blast
it was
them
a
out.
computer virus, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's not an EMP; it's a virus, and that's also because of Baltar.
Really?
Yes, because she rewrote the algorithms, and he was like, "Oh, here's my algorithm for like space flight that they use in all of their new ships and all of their networked computers." It came from her.
What a twat.
Yeah, and the whole thing about the networking is like if they can infect just one ship, that ship then infects like all the other ships it's networked with. And that's one of the reasons why they were able to wipe out like the fleet defense. The planetary stuff was more like the nuclear bombs, which would create the EMPs and stuff like that on the planet's surface, but also radiation, which plays a role later on in the series and stuff like that.
They developed the technology to cancel out ships and stuff with computers in them.
I don't think the ships in the original Battlestar Galactica were like that, because the ships in these...
No, the ships in the original Battlestar Galactica had Cylons that piloted them.
Yeah.
These ships are a Cylon. These ships are There's no pilots. They're just a Cylon.
Yeah.
That's
And
just what
there's
they are.
actually some mystery surrounding like what's actually piloting those ships, which we find out later on in the series. But just the look and feel of the Cylons, like the base stars are like massive and they're super scary. And
I like how original the shape is too, because it's like this freaking like double-sided halo type thing that's like floating around. It's always like a city. It's really creative and cool.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that.
It was a take on the original one.
Was
original
it?
series. Similar, but a lot bigger and a lot more imposing.
Cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Vader, in the original series, the Cylons all looked like robots, right? They were
like the metal toaster dudes, right?
Yeah.
Is that the
So
only
in,
version?
in the original, they didn't look like us yet.
Dude, no.
there were actually
That was new for
images
this.
of them in the museum where like they would show like the original Cylons and that's what they look like.
So that's one of the things I wanted to talk about today when we're talking about this, because like the last couple of sci-fi shows we've watched, we've all said like, oh, it kind of takes me out of it. It looks dated. And I feel like they got this one so right, because they do have those dated looking robots, but those are the old models.
Yeah.
The new models look like us. The better to fool you with, my dear.
Yeah.
And I think that's just a really cool twist on it that just draws you in so much more. Because like every time you see the robot in it, you're just like, it could take you out, but because you know, like, oh, that shit's from 50 years ago. You're like, yeah, it looks, cool. Okay,
Yeah.
what's the rest of the story?
I think the majority of the Cylons are still the metal robot things, but they have like a handful of the
Actually-
humanoid ones.
Okay, so here's the thing.
Actually?
Yeah,
Did you just, but actually,
I'm
me?
going to mansplain it to you. I'm going to human-splain it to you.
Okay.
Okay, so there's 12 models
Right.
that all look like humans. There's a fuck ton of them.
Oh.
And every time one of them dies, they just get their intelligence downloaded into a new body.
It's up in the cloud.
Yeah, it's up in the cloud and it downloads into a new body. They have a ton of these fresh bodies for them, but like there's hundreds of 6. There's hundreds of 3. They're everywhere. So there's
Okay.
the population is mostly them, and they all work together, and they each have their own different personalities.
Okay.
The robot Cylons, they're basically
They're like their
stoppers.
army.
They're like stormtroopers.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
You know,
The cannon fodder.
cannon fodder.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
Yeah,
so,
the Centurions are kind of like the foot soldiers.
Yeah.
Whereas the models, the 12 models, are kind of like the generals.
okay.
They're the ones who kind of control them.
So when she said 12 models, I assumed that there was like 12.
It's like
No.
cars.
So like you could be like number 4, and there could be like 50 of you running around. Well, you're all number 4s.
I'm the 4th model.
You're just the 4th
Yeah.
model.
Okay.
It's like at like the end of episode 1, you saw them all come in.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Well, we only saw like 3 or 4 models. There.
Yeah.
There's 12.
Okay.
And it's going forward
And
in
you
this series.
might have met them.
You. Damn it, Jesus. No spoilers. You've never seen this.
Stealing his
before.
thunder.
Sorry.
Going forward, we learn who the other models are.
Right.
But and it's just it's a plot point that
Okay.
as we go forward. Everything in this show, you were asking me.
Oh, I had so many questions.
Vipers are there?
Oh, I had
How many fucking
so
people are there?
many questions.
Blah, 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 blah.
We're
And I'm
gonna
like,
cover it.
and I'm typing, dude, fucking chill. It all comes out in the wash in the end. They address fucking everything in this show: gas, food,
Water.
population, water, fuel. It all becomes all these things become plot points in
Okay.
future episodes. Every
Okay.
single one of them.
Yeah. I had
You
so
know,
many questions going into this. I was
Yeah.
like, wait a second. These
It's just-
Vipers
it's
are
like,
relics.
I'm trying to fucking tell you, shut the fuck up and enjoy the show.
Enjoy the ride, Alex.
Because they're going to answer all the questions.
We'll get into it when we start talking about episode 133.
Yes.
I was literally doing math.
I know you were.
Trying to figure out what the
Vipers do there
I'm like, I need freaking
I
answers.
gotta go to Google. Oh shit!
I woke up this morning and had to scroll back 3 hours of conversation and catch up. I'm like, oh, okay. Oh, good. Okay. Yeah. You'll figure it out.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you one of my favorite aspects of the miniseries, and this is something that carries on throughout like the course of the series, is the relationship between Adama and President, what's her name?
Rosalind.
Rosalind.
Okay. Yeah.
So in this series, basically, it starts off. Rosalind is like the Secretary of Education, and Adama calls her like a glorified school teacher.
She is.
And when the leadership of the colonies gets wiped out, she is the only surviving person in the line of succession. So she suddenly becomes a president. And you have this great situation in the miniseries where Adama's full blown, like he's like, I'm going to war. I'm going to defeat these Cylons. I'm going to battle them. And Rosalind's sitting there and it's like, no, you have to, respect the chain of command. I'm the commander in chief. We have to run away and have babies. And Adama's just indignant. He's like, babies? It's like, what are you talking about?
That's more in the second one.
They just destroyed everything that we know. We have to like hit them back hard. And so like, but like the relationship between Rosalind and Adama going forward, it's a constantly evolving relationship where like they kind of begrudgingly come to respect each other after being forced to work together. And eventually like, like their relationship gets even more like in depth and complicated.
Yeah.
But their duality of like, kind of butting heads is the thing that basically saves humanity constantly.
They're the buddy cop show.
The thing that this show and series does so well is Adama's and Rosalind's relationship. It evolves clear through till the finale of the final season. The very last show. I mean, it's a long ongoing arc, and we're just getting the very beginning of this. It's very interesting what they end up doing.
And also, it adds that ticking clock element because we have to survive. There's only 50,000 of us left, and she's dying.
Yeah. She's got cancer or something like that, right?
And that whiteboard
with the number on it. Yeah.
It's a very interesting plot point. As the show goes on.
So where part one leaves off, we all think Lee is dead, and we learn in the first one that Adama he had another son who died 2 years ago. So this is
that's why
Lee is Apollo.
Yeah. So that's Apollo, and Adama, Kara, and Lee all have a relationship. I don't know if it was made clear, but Kara was engaged to their other brother, and so that made her really close with the rest of the family. And then when he died, like she's kind of the go-between for both of them because Lee and Adama can't see eye to eye on anything. So moving into the second episode, we all think Lee's dead. It turns out the Cylons fired a nuke at Colonial 1, and Lee swoops in and shoots it out of the sky, tricking the Cylons into thinking that the nuke exploded, and they leave. He's just a hero.
He's just a damn good pilot.
Apollo's a badass.
Yeah. And like Adama has said on numerous occasions that Kara or Starbuck is their best pilot. And Lee is probably the only one who can go toe to toe with her.
So would you guys say that Lee is more like the Iceman and Starbuck is kind of like Maverick?
Yeah.
We're like two different schools of fighter pilot, but one's by the book and the other one's kind of flying by the seat of his pants.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Lee's just
That's
like,
the
here are
vibe.
the rules.
Yeah.
I'm in charge. Take your goddamn stimulants so that you can stay awake. And she's like, nah, man, it makes me lose my edge. I'm going to go in there crazy. And he's like, I'm going to throw you in the brig. Take your goddamn stimulants.
I think we need to touch on the relationship dynamic a little bit between Adama and Lee and Starbuck a little bit, because Starbuck is basically family.
Yeah.
Okay. She was engaged to Zach.
The one who died, right?
And Apollo blames
his father
for his son dying.
Yeah.
Because they pushed him. All he wanted to do was please his dad. He wasn't able to be a pilot.
Yeah.
But they thought he could do it, but he didn't have it.
And Starbuck was his trainer in flight school.
And Starbuck was his trainer and also had an inappropriate relationship with him going on. And because of the relationship she had, she wanted to please them, so she passed him on his test when he shouldn't have passed.
So Apollo
and that ended up causing him to be killed.
Yeah.
So Apollo should blame her.
But Apollo blames his dad when he should be blaming Kara. And that's why there's that one scene at the end.
She confesses at the end,
She confesses, and he's like, "Why are you fucking telling me this?" And
she's like, "It's the end of the world,
man." And and she also loves Lee. There's a dynamic here. They have a long history, and it's kind of complicated, but it's interesting, and it gives everybody another layer.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And that's what the show does so well. Everybody has a layer.
Starbuck's relationship with Ty is also a very important thing going forward. Ty's one of my favorite characters in the show.
Ty's a mess. Colonel Ty, the one that the commander,
the drunk.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah, I like that.
We get into him way deep as the
Okay.
series goes along as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
But,
Because
but he's like the salty, like, grizzled commander, and he just gets more grizzled and salty as the series
that
goes
one
on.
line where he's talking to the commander guy, he's like, if the crew doesn't hate their XO, they're not doing their job right. He's just owning being everybody's villain.
And it's so nuanced. They have set up so much with him with that first initial conversation between him and Kara. And Kara's like, "How's your wife?" We won't find out during these episodes, but like his wife is also a drunk, but also fucks everyone.
Oh, she's a trip.
She's still alive?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, she's on one of the ships?
Well, we'll find out later.
Well,
okay.
he finds out later, but we're not going to cover it in these 4 episodes, so I don't really feel like it's spoiling anything. But yeah, his wife's still alive, but like they also have a long history. And Adama, when he finds out that his wife is alive, he's like, shit, she's a fucking mess, and she's gonna make him even more of a fucking mess. And they fight all the time, and she'll go fuck someone, and then she'll like come home and he'll smack her around, and then they fuck, and it's nuts.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
We all have that friend, right?
Maybe.
Yeah.
I think ours is Jude.
That's crazy, bitch. Jesus.
Smack you around, Jude.
Oh man! All right, so we got to wrap this up. So let's do final thoughts on the part 1 and part 2 of the miniseries. As a first-time watcher, I'm in. I'm sold in this universe. I love the aesthetic of it. I love the dark tone. The characters are interesting. The freaking bad guy drives me up a freaking wall. I hate him so much, but I know I'm like in for a long ride with this dude, so I'm kind of like bracing myself a little bit. But everything's a ton of fun. I had a blast watching the show, so thank you guys for introducing it to me.
There's 2 things I want to talk about before we all do final thoughts. Just 2 things that happen in the series. 2 like really tough calls. One is one that Colonel Ty had to make, and one is one that Roslin has to make. And it's for the survival of the rest of humanity. And Ty makes the call to basically kill 80 people to save the ship.
Right.
And that it was a hard decision that he had to make, and a hard decision for like the lower in the chain of command to accept.
Right.
And then juxtaposed to that is the other decision that Roslin has to make at the end of the second episode of this miniseries, where like there's these people that are stranded and they don't have the FTL drives in order to jump with them. They're all networked. And Roslin's like, fuck them.
We gotta go.
We gotta go. And like you can hear on the radio, they're like, please help us. And then some of them are like, fuck you, burn in hell.
Yeah.
And they feel so betrayed. And she's like, God, I had to make that call because now I'm the fucking president.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a great scene. So like after Ty makes that call to sacrifice the 87 like engineers that were trying to put out the fire, the head engineer, I forget his name, but he
Turl.
Okay, so he goes to Adama and he's like, if I had just had 30 more seconds, I could have saved all 87 of those guys. And he kind of like lets loose his feelings for Ty.
Calls him a son of a bitch,
yeah,
I think.
yeah. And Adama looks at him. He's like, no, you listen to me. He made a call, and if I was in his position, I would have made the same call. And it's like, whether he was right or he was wrong, you got to accept it and do your job. And that one scene between Adama where like he was sticking up for his XO and kind of putting a lower, a crew member in his place, it's so embodied Adama to me.
Yeah.
And going forward, because Adama is kind of like the guy where, he's the consummate commander, but he's not perfect, right? And he realizes that other people aren't perfect. People make mistakes. People don't always make popular decisions and stuff like that. But he's always loyal to his crew, and that's something that is so emblematic of his character. And it is interesting to see, like, one of the great things about this show, and one of the reasons why it's a classic, is because it constantly puts these moral dilemmas in front of not just the characters, but the audience as well. And the audience is forced to say, like, well, what would I have done in that situation? And you look at how the characters react, where Rosalind was really torn up about having to leave those people without light speed engines behind. Whereas Ty, he was like, in a decision between the ship and 87 crew members, I'm choosing the ship every single time. And like, he had no doubt in his mind about what was the right call. And it was just interesting to see, like, juxtaposing those two people, like how they reacted to it, and sitting there thinking to yourself, it's like, would I have given him the 30 seconds if it meant, putting the ship at risk, it's an interesting kind of like,
there's a lot of interesting questions that get posed in this show. It's like, there's the leadership questions. So there's also the stuff of how the humans, you get this show goes deep into a weird philosophical realm, It's like, why are the robots the ones that are spouting religion and philosophy, where the humans like Baltar are like,
atheists and stuff. Yeah,
it's completely atheist.
Yeah.
Like, fuck your God. He doesn't exist. This stuff happens because of me. It's like, why are the robots religious? It's a really weird. There's a lot of weird questions that they dive into in this show when it comes to that kind of stuff. I mean, the Cylons are basically on a crusade.
Yeah.
Or they're out there just kind of looking for what's real and what's not, because they know that they were created by man.
Yeah. And they're constantly evolving. It's like,
do we have souls? I mean, that's a big question for a Cylon. Does a Cylon have a soul? That's a thing. Of what makes a person, sentient, that kind of thing. It's a driving force of this entire series.
And there's also the interesting question of, if you're a Cylon, do you know you're a Cylon?
Right.
Type thing.
Yeah. This show gets deep in a lot of different ways.
So at the end of this, we find out that there are Cylons among us, and some of the Cylons that we have already met, or some of the people that we've already met, are Cylons.
Yeah. It's a dun.
That's the cliffhanger that they in the miniseries on.
How did you feel when you saw Sharon walk in?
Oh, I was so bummed. I was like, come on.
Not Boomer!
Not my girl. I liked her so much. I'm like, God damn it, I got to root against her. Maybe not. I don't know.
Well, what's interesting about the different models, so like you have like the models, like, the 1s, the 2s, the 3s, the 4s, but each version of that model is unique in a weird way. And so like eventually, like, you have certain models that decide to go against their programming, which is again part of like the interesting kind of moral conundrum of the Cylons.
There's a brown-haired 6.
So like there's a lot of interesting things that this show does that just wasn't done in sci-fi before, and it's fun to watch it kind of evolve over time, because like I said, at the end of the miniseries, I wasn't too into it, but then like once the series started up proper, and you get to see like how the situation evolves and how hard the characters work to like overcome these obstacles and the journey you go on with them, it becomes like so engrossing. Like I think it's up there with Breaking Bad in terms of like like quality TV
I agree.
shows.
Whoa.
And I want, right before we quit on this, I want to talk about one more thing, and that's the setup for the overall story arc of the series, where at the end, Adama's up there
giving
them this speech. And the so say we all. So say we all.
Yeah.
And it's like, and he goes up there and he gives him this big long bullshit story about the lost 13th tribe and this planet called Earth, and how only the highest level military generals know where this planet is, and he's just trying to give
hope,
his people some hope and something to strive for, because he heard this little story somewhere and he doesn't have a fucking clue.
He sold me
where Earth is. I know, it was funny last night.
I was like,
it's like he doesn't know where the fuck Earth is, dude.
And I was like, God damn it, man.
well, here's the thing. So Vader touched on it, the Cylons being so philosophical and having religion, and the humans have all but abandoned all of those concepts. But there are prophecies hundreds of years old that some of the characters in this turns out they're a part of, and it starts to really evolve how the humans see religion and God and stuff like that.
It's like the humans haven't abandoned religion. They just kind of like, it's just kind of a thing, because there's the priestess at the end. She has the scrolls and the, I don't know. It's just it becomes more intertwined with this story about how it goes on.
And the religious faction actually creates a lot of problems for the political faction going forward, where it's kind of like the highfalutin moral values versus like the realistic, pragmatic situation, where it's like, okay, if we don't do this, we're going to die. It's like, oh, but if we do this, we're spiritually dead anyway. And it's an interesting kind of like conflict going forward.
So obviously, if you're listening and watching, we are going to dive into this show. We can talk about it for hours, but we gotta get moving. So if you guys want access, we're talking about the 4 first episodes of season 1, episode 1, 2, and 1, 2, 3, and 4 for our Patreon members. So if you want access to that, head over to saltynerdclub.com. It's only $5 a month, and you guys can join us for the entire month of October.
Yep.
We're talking Battlestar Galactica. So join up. You can head over there, and we're doing watch parties every week for the episode that we'll be talking about. So you can join us in Discord, do the watch party along with us as well. And we'd love the support, and hopefully you guys can enjoy watching Battlestar Galactica with us.
And we're doing something interesting with this show where normally like we'll jump around, we'll pick like the best episodes of like the first season. With this one, Jude was just like, nope, episodes 1 through 4 of season 1.
There
like we're just going
so
in
many
order.
characters and storylines that if we jumped around at all, it would be way too confusing.
Yeah.
And I think we're probably going to keep going with this in future months. So it's nice to have the bulk of 1 through 4, and,
Yeah.
and then we can
miniseries.
pick up later.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, V, go ahead and sign off, buddy.
Okay. Hi.
No, it's the other one.
I feel like we didn't do this.
There's so much to
two-episode
talk
So
about.
miniseries.
much.
We didn't do this thing any justice. We just kind of like talked about the little highlights because it's such a good show and there's so much going on and there's so many characters. But you know, it is what it is. We only have so much time. So
Plus, we kind of threw it in last minute.
Yeah.
well, yeah, I guess. But it's a great show. I love this show. This show kind of reinvigorated my love for science fiction in 2003 because there's just a lot of shit out there at the time. You know, there's nothing bad about this. It's not boring. I don't know what Kate is just talking about being boring. It's a really good show and there's a good setup and there's a lot of action and there's a lot of really cool characters. The music's great. The special effects are great. The characters are awesome. It's super fun, but it's good. I love it. Cool. And that's it, man.
All right, man.
Yeah.
Where can people find you?
You can find me at Matt Bader 74 on all the social media stuff. And yeah,
All right.
Battlestar Galactica rules.
Cool.
So say we all.
So,
say we all. All right, Jude, take it away.
So one thing I wanted to tell the people about before we sign off is we did kind of throw this in last minute. We talked about it last week, and I didn't want to do the miniseries because I knew it was 3 hours. And in our group chat, all of a sudden the other day, Vader was like, "This is 3 fucking hours."
And we were like,
And
yeah,
Alex and I were like, "Yeah, we said." Are you sure?
because it's 3
fucking
hours.
hours. And Vader was the one who was like, no, we got to do it right.
Yeah.
We got to do it justice. We got to do
He's
it
right. He's absolutely
and he
right.
was absolutely right.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, never seeing this before. If I would have just ran into episode 1, which is called 33, I would have been like,
Who the fuck are
who
all
the
these
fuck
people?
are all these people? This setup is essential for the TV show.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So I think you made a good call on that, but it
Good
was
job.
3 hours long.
It was long. Not gonna lie.
So go ahead, Jude, sign off.
You can find me at I am Jude Juju on the socials.
All right. Matthew Kadish, final thoughts, sign off.
So I just want to clear something up. I do not think that the miniseries is boring. I thought
said
that
it was boring.
I said when I first saw it, when
At
it
the
first
time.
aired, not knowing what was coming down the line, I found it kind of like boring because I just didn't care about any of the characters. I wasn't really invested in it. And it was spread out over 2 nights. So you couldn't watch like the second part like immediately after the first part. So the first part of this was kind of very slow when it was initially aired. But like I said, when you go back and rewatch it, it's very well done, especially if you can watch it back to back. It just becomes like a really great kind of launching pad for the series to come. So I just wanted to make that clear. I don't think that it's boring. I was just like, my opinion
I
of
need to
it
clear my name.
has changed over time.
Whoever's editing
he's-
this needs to go back and take a clip of him saying this was boring.
All these,
I said it was
fragile
boring when I first saw it. Okay.
All right.
Did not have sexual relations with that woman.
I was really upset and bored because I couldn't binge watch it in 2003.
He is a binge model guy.
And his
yeah.
standards are very high.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, but I wasn't alone in thinking that it was boring. A lot of people were very underwhelmed when it premiered.
Disagree.
But then once the series started going, people got really into it. I'm not saying everyone thought that it was boring, but like there was a lot of people who were like, "Oh, this is kind of a lackluster start to the series." But in going back and rewatching it, yeah, it's not boring at all. But you can find me at Matthew Kadish, Kadish on Twitter and Truth Social, and kadishbooks.com takes you to my Amazon page. And check us out on Facebook at saltynerdgroup.com, takes you to our Facebook group.
All right, guys, last reminder. If you want access to our full month of content talking about Battlestar Galactica, head over to saltynerdclub.com and join up if you're not already a member. We have a lot of great perks involved in that. It's only $5 a month, guys. It's really cheap, and I think you guys get well worth your money. We're always constantly chatting with our club members, figuring out what they want us to cover, and doing watch parties and special events and all kinds of cool stuff. So head over there. Join up to help support the podcast.
Get the whole back catalog of everything we've covered.
So much stuff. All right, guys. It's too much.
It's a lot.
All right, folks. Thank you guys for watching the video. Stay salty, my friends, and we'll catch you this month. Battlestar Galactica.